And hello and welcome. It's been a long time. The few followers I have. Before I've done a stream and or interview is my kind of favorite format to do, as those who have followed me know. And today I have Rob Says on. The link to his Twitter is in the description. He has a YouTube channel as well and a blog. And you go to his Twitter and you can find all that on there. And he's interesting and quite funny guy. That's why I started to follow him. And we have mutual acquaintances in common, which is kind of how I discovered him. Masculine Geek and TJ Martinell and a few others. So they're all cool guys too. So check them out. Anyway, but at least for the beginning of this conversation, well, first I'm going to ask Rob to introduce himself, and then we're going to, at least for a little while, we're going to talk about red pill versus black pill. But first, I'd like Rob to just kind of give him a vague, short introduction of himself, or as long as he wants. Rob, have at it. Just tell us just a little bit about yourself, whatever.
Hey, first of all, thanks for having me on, John. I appreciate it. I always like doing these type of events, having conversations with different people, and the more I can be involved in that, the better as far as I'm concerned. So thank you again for bringing me on. I really appreciate it. So to give a little backstory to me, I do have a website and a blog. It's robsays.net. That's where you can find me. That's my mothership, if you will. All of my social media links are there. My YouTube channel's connected there. And I've been doing this for about 2 years now. I decided back in 2018 that I was going to document, whatever you want to call it, my own kind of personal journey, personal dealing with what we all call the red pill. And so that's what it started out as in actually, it was in 16 is when I started the blog, but I really didn't get into it until about 2018. And in the beginning, I was doing the anonymous thing and trying to be very vague about everything. And then in 2018, I decided, to hell with it. I really, in a lot of ways, I have nothing to lose. So I decided, I'm going to show my face, show my name, and put myself out there. I'm by no means any kind of like guru or any special dude. I'm just an average guy. I'm 48 years old. I'm currently single at this time, as far as in any kind of serious committed relationship. I am not in one. I am seeing a couple of women on the side. They are aware of each other. They are aware of what I do, both in my job, which I do have an occupation. They are aware that I do this kind of stuff. All of the women at one point or another have ended up in my house, and they've seen my studio setup. They've seen the great big green screen behind me. They've seen the lighting stuff. They've seen the microphone. And so they're like, oh, are you a photographer? And it's like, well, yes, I do that as well. I do photography. I've got quite a bit of that under my belt. But I also do podcasts and I shoot videos, and this is what I do. So these women are aware of what I do. They know that on some level, they know I'm part of what we affectionately or not call the manosphere or the red pill corner, whatever you want to call it. They're aware of what I do. And all it is I'm just documenting everything that all my things that I've learned along the way, and everything I've learned along the way has been trial and error. Everything I've learned along the way, some of it's come real easy. Some of it has been very, very painful. There's been things where I've had a lot more failures, I guess you could say, or setbacks, whatever you want to call it. A lot of not getting what I wanted versus getting what I wanted. And I'm an average guy. I'm an average dude. I'm a middle-aged guy. And yet I'm doing things that some people would consider impossible. And it's like, it's really not, guys. You just have to be willing to, you have to be willing to fail. You have to be willing to get shot down. You have to be willing to get told no. And that's in all facets of life, not just like with women. That's anything you want to do. You're going to get told no more than you're going to get told yes. But it's the yeses that count. It's the yeses that make all the no's worthwhile. So, but that's my, I guess, my spiel, my introduction.
All right, good. Thank you. And by the way, he wasn't lying when he said he's a good photographer. He showed some of the video he's captured in infrared in his bedroom. I got to say, I was very impressed. Good stuff, by the way.
A lot of it's technology when it comes to photography. You can be a mediocre photographer, but if you've got a good lens or you've got some money tied up in it, you can make a mediocre picture into a really great picture. So yes, there is truth in that.
Yeah, the one with the blonde and the redhead, that was very impressive. I was saying that was.
Well, thank you.
That was some quality video. I have to say, that was good stuff. I dabbled in that myself, so I gotta say, major props. Anyway, all right, so let's get into the meat of this. I think everybody kind of knows what the red pill is. I will just say, or I would say, the red pill to me is more than just women. I know there's some one particularly kind of big name in the manosphere or whatever you want to call it that says the red pill is only about women and hypergamy. It seems to be this guy's favorite word. And it's not. The red pill is about understanding the world the way it is, not the way you were told it is, not just about women. That's one component. And I always thought that if your life is just focusing on male-female interactions and that's it, and not viewing the world as a whole, everything is the red pill is just about the way I look at it is viewing reality for what reality is and not being judgmental about it per se. I mean, we are emotional creatures by nature, so we can pass judgments after we observe reality, through empiricism. And then after that, we can get emotional about it if we so choose, but not to be, that's my, would you disagree with that, or yes or no?
The way I see it, I know the big name you're talking about, and in general, I like his narrowness of focus. I guess that's kind of how I've always looked at it. But I also see your point of broadening it out to life in general, and I'm not in disagreement with you. I tend to kind of look at red pill as not just intersexual dynamics. I do view it as more you're dealing with what is, not what you think it ought to be or you wish it to be. It is what it is. And that's where I choose for me to kind of expand the definition a little bit. And so, yeah, I look at it not just as between men and women. It's kind of a little bit of everything. When you start getting into politics and other things like that is where I tend to lose interest in it and tend to kind of, whatever, and move on. It's like, now this is more just what is for me and not to make excuses about it. That's kind of how I look at it. But I'm in general, I'm in agreement with you there, John.
All right, cool. So just so we got our definitions down, because I mean, of course, women is a big part of it, for me as well. I mean, I think the reason why a lot of people get stuck on just using the red pill about women is because that's usually how they got brought into it,
right?
And not realizing it. Whoa! This red pill, it goes way more than this. You know what I mean? It affects your job. It affects politics. It affects even the way history is taught to us, things like that. Because that's one of my big hobbies is studying history. I've literally read over 1,000 books on history.
Nice.
Different topics. Mostly my two favorite areas are World War II and prehistory.
Okay.
Ancient Rome, ancient Greece, and before.
Nice. Okay.
So that's I wouldn't call myself an expert in any way. I'm a neophyte as far as that goes, but I greatly.
You're definitely a history buff, though. We'll go with that.
Yes, go with it. Yeah,
cool.
That's
I like that.
History buff.
Okay.
So anyway, so now definitions of the black pill. I will preface this by saying I don't actually have a definition of the black pill yet. I'm kind of new to it, though it's fascinating to me. So I don't know if you do, or just what is your kind of general understanding of what it is?
Well, I did a blog post about it that I released today, which created a very, 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 very minor firestorm. And I knew it kind of would, because to me, the black pill one, for me, myself, I don't really pay a lot of attention to it because I don't identify with it. It's like, all right, so we've got people that they've taken the red pill at some point, seen reality for what it is, and they kind of develop a kind of like a nihilistic approach to it, that it's like, well, life sucks, and so why bother? Why try? Just give up, whatever, quit. And you know what? And if that's what they want to do, that's fine. That's them. I choose not to do that. It's like, well, life was never meant to be easy. Life is a struggle. It is what it is, and life is indifferent to you. It doesn't give a shit. And so you can either look at it and say nobody gives a shit and be all depressed and sad about it, or you can be kind of excited about it and be like, nobody gives a shit. Because that kind of means within reason, you can do whatever you want. You can say whatever you want. You can go do whatever you want. And to me, the black pill is, I think anyway, it's guys that kind of get stuck in this sense of hopelessness, that, you know, life sucks and then you die type of thing. And if you want to look at it that way, I guess you could. And I did for a while. I guess I was black pilled at one point in life. But I just realized that life didn't care either way what I thought, and neither did anyone else. No one else cared what I thought about it. And so it was a choice that I could choose to say, well, I could sit here and be miserable and angry and upset and depressed about it, or I can do something else. And I chose to just be like, well, because John, I'm an atheist. I don't believe in God. I don't believe in an afterlife. I don't believe that you get a chance to do things over, or that you get a reward in heaven, or that you get punished in hell. And so the only life I have is this life right now. And I might as well, since nobody really gives a shit, I might as well do the things I want to do. And am I going to get everything that I wanted? Probably not. But I'm okay with that, because I'm going to get far more than I thought I would have gotten, if that even makes any sense.
Yeah, I generally understand what you're saying. It's interesting you said you're an atheist. That I mean, I don't consider, I'm not an atheist. I'll say that I'm not a just for. I mean, I don't really. I kind of feel like Thomas Jefferson was kind of on this. He kind of said like telling people your religious beliefs or lack thereof is kind of like a very personal thing.
Yeah, it can be.
And I think I believe that the purpose of religion is to deal with the unknowable and the incomprehensible.
I would agree with you 100%. I would agree with you.
And I have that's why I have I will all say, for full disclosure, in case anyone, no, I'm not a Christian, but I am not an atheist either.
Okay.
But I believe that, I also believe that this life is more important than the next. So my focus is all about this life. I don't, how do I say it? The way I live my life is not other than dealing with the unknowable and let me just define, like, an example of that would be, let's say, the death of, if you had a child and your child dies before you.
Okay.
That is an that's
yeah, I couldn't comprehend that. I wouldn't know what that's like. No idea.
Yeah, and that is something that could totally destroy a human psyche.
Yep.
I unfortunately know a couple that their son died of I forget the name of it. Not SIDS. It's just a cough. It's not uncommon for kids to die of this, where they actually took the kid to the doctor and they diagnosed him with this upper respiratory infection. I forget what it is, and then literally woke up the next morning and the child was dead.
Oh,
and the wife for a while went literally insane, like didn't get out of bed for like 6 months to a year, and it nearly destroyed their marriage. And it was, fortunately, long story short, they actually had another kid, and the couple is happy and healthy, and so is the child. But something like that is an example of where, being an atheist is kind of rough, because if you experience something like that and you don't have any sort of let's say what's the right word? Yeah, spiritual beliefs or anything like that, it can pretty much destroy you.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I'm not. I've never experienced that, so I would have nothing to compare it to or base it on to agree with it, or agree or disagree with you on that. The only experiences I've had that for me, I can look at it and go, okay, well, my mom died a little over a year and a half ago from complications to cancer. Okay. And it sucked and it was rough. And, but I also realized when me and my father talked about it, because he had lost his parents, obviously, a few years before my mom died. And he said, you don't get over it, but you do learn to get through it, is what it is. And that's the best explanation I've heard so far. And I would agree with it, that you don't really, something like that, a death of a close loved one, you don't get over it, but you get through it because life goes on. And I realized that when I was at my mother's funeral, and everyone's coming in and they're, coming up and hugging and crying a little bit. And
Yeah, that was in the blog post I just read. That was
exactly.
By the way, the blog, but very good post. By the way, I read it.
Thank Thank you.
And that's why one of the reasons I had you on. And I don't
Well,
know if you consider me part of that mini firestorm or whatever you call it or not.
Well, anyone that kind of responded to it, I know it got retweeted by a few individuals as well, which brought some more traffic and stuff like that to it. And it's just, to me, the way I used to be when I was a little kid, I was religious. I was brought up not in a religious family because my parents were never religious, but they were that cliched saying of spiritual but not religious type of thing. That was my family. Okay.
Yeah.
So we were agnostic. It was one of those, I don't know if there's a God or not, but for me, and this was my personal choice, I've seen a lot of different things. I've been witness to a lot of stuff that, can I explain it? No, I can't. I don't have an explanation for it. Do I think it's supernatural? No, I don't. I think we haven't been able to figure out what it is, but at some point down the road, we will. Just like ancient people back in the day thought fire came from the gods, or electricity, stuff that we have today that others in the ancient past would consider magic or mystical. And yet, no, science eventually found an answer. I think that's kind of where we're at. Am I saying that there isn't a God? No, I don't believe there is, but at the same time, I'm not closed-minded enough, but nobody's showed any kind of real evidence to prove that there is a God. And until they do.
Then I would say then you're more or less, you're somewhere between an atheist and an agnostic, because an atheist, someone that absolutely denies is not opened to the possibility.
I would say I'm more of an agnostic with atheist leanings then, if I'm going to be, completely honest, that it's like, I'm open to the idea if someone can show me some kind of proof, but so far nobody has been able to do that. And so that's where I'm leaning more towards there isn't a God. And I'm okay with that. When I came to that conclusion, for me, it made my life a lot more bearable, a lot more easier, because it's like, well, I don't need to worry about the afterlife. I don't need to worry about some being that is either benevolent or malevolent. If anything, if it exists, it's indifferent. And so I can kind of do more or less whatever the hell I want to do. And that's why when I wrote about that in my blog post, I said that life is absurd. And that's because it has no inherent meaning, because we all like to ask ourselves, what's the meaning of life? Well, inherently, there is no meaning, in my opinion, that you get to decide what that meaning is for you. You get to figure it out, and it's going to be different for everyone. Your definition of what is the meaning of life is probably going to be a lot different than mine. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just that, well, your definition may or may not coincide with mine. And either way, I don't care, because you're not me. I'm not you. I'm going to do what I want to do. You're going to do what you want to do. And as long as we're not interfering with either one of us doing whatever we're doing, there's not going to be any issues as far as I'm concerned. And so that's kind of why I mean when I say nobody gives a shit, is it's like, hey, everyone's got their own problems. You have your problems. I have mine. And just like the people that showed up at my mom's funeral, They have their own problems. They came in and, oh, sorry for your loss. She was a great woman. Call us if you need anything. And then they went right back to going on with their lives. And that's red pill to me. That's reality. It's like, we all have our problems. We all have our own things that we're focused on. And I'm not saying that with anger or bitterness. It's just the observation I had, because here a few months ago, one of my dad's best friends died. It was the last of his best friends died. My dad is the last man standing out of his best friends. Well, this last best friend died, and I did the exact same thing. Showed up at the funeral, gave everyone who was still around a hug and said, sorry for your loss. He was a great guy. Told my dad the same thing. And then I went on with life, because life goes on whether you like it or not. Life goes on whether you think it should end or not. And life itself doesn't care. It's indifferent to you and your struggles. So you might as well understand that and accept it. Don't fight it. It's like, life doesn't give a shit. It to me, it frees you up that, hey, I can do all kinds of things. You know, you may still end up paying consequences for it, but you can kind of do whatever you want, because that's what I ended up doing. That's part of why I wanted to have this talk with you today, John, is the things that I used to do because others said this is what you need to do. And I did all of that and ended up in a place where I was completely miserable. And so I got myself out of it by deciding, this is my life. I want to do whatever it is I want to do. And if I make mistakes, if I screw up, if I, whatever it is, then I get to own that. I get to pay for it, I guess. But otherwise, at least I can say, well, that was my choice. And so I started doing the things I wanted to do. Believe me, I've had all kinds of people, both close to me and total strangers, telling me, oh, you shouldn't be doing that, or that's wrong, or whatever. And I'm just like, go live your life. I'm living mine. I'm happy. I'm doing the things I want to do, and I'm pushing the envelope, pushing the limits of what I can do, and realizing that there's not a shit ton of limits. That it's like, wow, I didn't realize I could, for instance, attract a girl who was 20 years younger than me. That it's like, oh, wow, I was able to do that. What else can I do?
What else can I stop you there? Because
sure,
we are talking about the black pill on this. So you were able to attract a girl, much younger than you, that I assume was a very attractive woman.
Yes.
But the thing is, many people can't. Now, you and I are of a similar age. I'm 50, so
okay, yeah, I'm a couple years younger than you.
Yeah.
We're in the same generation, that's for sure.
We're in the same gen. Yeah, but you and I, we remember a time like my, the expression the rock star 20s. Mine were in the 90s. Okay, and I became kind of fascinated when I found out about the incel thing, because when I first heard it, I just thought incel was like a derogatory word you called somebody.
Yeah, okay.
I didn't know when I it wasn't up until fairly recently that I realized there were people that self-identified themselves. Like, I wouldn't say took pride in it, but
right. But they definitely identified with it. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, it was like, I thought like being called an incel was like calling someone an asshole or,
right.
half a fag.
Yeah. It's a derogatory term. And yet there's people that wear it as a badge of honor.
Right. And that kind of, I was like, whoa. At first I thought it was a joke. And then I thought it was like a troll thing. And then I did some research on this. And then like, I think it was sometime, I don't know, it was Ellie Rogers or one of the other guys who killed people or something, and then got on the. So I started. It was kind of in your face for a while. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do. I do remember that. Yeah.
And so I was curious, but I started kind of reading about this stuff. I was like, huh. And at first I was very dismissive about it. And then I realized when I started to see a lot of these guys weren't stupid or just, life's like, they weren't just these nihilistic, lazy people. They were people who actually put a huge amount of time and effort explaining why reality was the way it was, why they couldn't attract someone who was attractive, that they couldn't attract someone that was attractive. And they showed scientific reasons. It's kind of like you said, they thought fire came, it used to be that, if someone fell in love with someone, they thought they were shot in the ass with Cupid's arrow. Well, that's not the way it works. There's scientific reasons why different sexes are attracted to each other. The like the hip to waist ratio for women, the symmetry for face, the strong jawline, the hunter eyes, all these kind of things are literally genetically hardwired into us as a species to find the opposite sex attractive if you're hetero. And let's stay with that. Let's not get
right. We'll just keep it into that group.
So you were saying you were able to attract these people, but someone who was black-pilled would say, well, wasn't due to any effort on your part. I mean, you just had a certain, because it's all, and the other argument they made, and this I would agree with, when we were in our 20s, dating was very different. I mean, I remember when I was like around 27, and that was for a bunch of reasons. That's when I was dating. I mean, literally every weekend, a different girl. And I remember the girls at my age at the time were looking to get married. Like they wanted to get married. They, I mean, after you sleep with them, they were picking out fucking China patterns. I mean, that was, I'm not every one of them, of course.
No, but I know what you mean. The generalization you're making is not inaccurate.
Yeah. And doesn't see now because women, like let's say most of what I'm talking about is men under 30. And men under 30, the women, I don't know the exact numbers on this, but I know women under 30 make more than men under 30.
I would say that's probably a half decent assessment. Yeah, I'd say they probably do make more money.
So they're not looking at men because, like, I mean, it's not that the women I was seeing were all like just gold diggers or something like that.
Right.
They were imagining themselves as like, yeah, I'd work until we had kids, and then, I'd stop, and that was kind of the way things worked. And you dated within your social group, and it was also very demographics dependent. So for full disclosure, I live in Seattle and have since I was 24. And it was funny because Seattle always has had a larger male population than female population. So the odds were always in favor of women. But in my 20s, I was extremely fit. I was, and I'm 6 feet tall. I was considered very Chad in my 20s. And although that term didn't exist.
Right.
But so I was able to go to a bar even in Seattle, and even with the skewed ratio, and pull. But it was interesting when I used to go to New York and Chicago, which I traveled an awful lot in my 20s. I would do zero work and get laid. I remember being in New York in the 90s and hanging out with a buddy of mine who I hadn't seen in a while, and we were just catching up the way guys do on in a bar. And I think we were actually talking about sports, and a bunch of girls just came up to us. Because I remember we ended up both getting laid that night, and literally, it always stick in my mind because the girls ended up fighting over us. So that's why that's why I always this one time. There's other anecdotes to the story I'll tell you offline that might be a little too R-rated, but it was literally that simple. You just had to show up. If you were a decent looking guy in your 20s in the 90s and you lived in a city like New York or Chicago where the ratio was more or less even, girl, you didn't do any. I mean, you had to bathe and shave, but that's about it. You didn't have to learn game. That's not the way it exists now.
I'm going to agree with you up to a point, and then I'm going to disagree with you. When I was in my 20s, I was very, I guess, using some of the term, I was very blue-pilled. Okay. And I was a serial monogamist. I was the guy that I met a girl, whether we hooked up immediately or it took a little bit, but then I put all of my attention, all of my focus on her until it ran its course, and then I would move on to the next girl. Okay, that's just how I did it all the way up into my mid-30s, which was when I got married. Okay, and when I got married, yeah, and I was never like morbidly obese or even what I guess we would clinically classify as obese, but I was always overweight. That's just, I've always been that guy from probably the end of high school up until I was probably about 41. Okay. And I was still married at 41, but I was absolutely miserable. I hated what I was involved in. I knew what the rest of my life was looking like. I knew the direction it was going. And I got very depressed. I was like, you know what? I can't do this. If this is the rest of my life, if this is what I'm meant to do, then I would rather be dead than keep doing this. And so I turned to my now ex-wife at the time and told her I wanted a divorce. Okay. So I got divorced. But while I was still considering divorce and considering the direction my life was going, I started changing certain things up just because I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. And so I changed my diet, and all of a sudden I lost 60 pounds. Okay. I went from 180 down to like 120. And people initially
120. Jesus, what are you, look, Gandhi?
Well, yeah, but a lot of people thought I was sick. I even had people at family events, family members, come up to me and say, "Are you okay?" And it's like, "Yeah, why? Are you sick?" And it's like, "What do you mean? Am I sick? Do you have something? Because you've lost a lot of weight." And I'm like, "Actually, I feel better now than I've felt in as far as I know, as far back as I can remember. I feel better now than I've ever felt." Okay. And I've managed to keep the majority of it off. I did it because I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. Well, when I got divorced, I hit the ground running. I wanted to get back out there. I wanted to date. I wanted to meet other women. And so that's what I did. And one of the very first women that showed up for me was the girl who was 20 years younger than me. And at the time, I'm looking at her going, well, I know why I'm interested in her. She's younger, hotter, tighter. What she finds attractive about me, I didn't know. And to be honest, I didn't care. It was like, hey, she's attracted. That's all that matters.
But would she have been attracted to you, do you believe, if you were 60 pounds heavier?
Probably not, but I don't know. What I do know is for most of my life, I had been somewhat invisible to women because I was overweight. Okay. Oh. And when I lost the weight, all of a sudden girls, women, they're looking at me and I'm looking around me thinking there's got to be a guy behind me that they're looking at. And when I kind of turned and would look around and see, is there some other dude hanging around, and realize there's not, it's me. It was kind of mind blowing. Okay. And so I realized, wow, okay. And all I did was lost weight. I didn't go to the gym. I didn't get jacked. I didn't get ripped. And I'm still not jacked or ripped, but I am no longer overweight. I am actually right about where I need to be for my height, which is 5'4". Okay. Back in my 20s, I was 5'4".
Are you shorter than Aaron Cleary? Is that possible?
Yes, I am.
Oh my God. Okay.
Yeah, there's a picture of me, Aaron, and TJ Martinell that people can find on my Instagram. And I'm standing in between these two guys. And both these guys, Aaron is actually 5'9". TJ is pushing 6 foot, maybe even a little bit over. And yet, when I first met them, I was like, you're not as tall as I thought you'd be. That's what I said to them. That's what I said to them, because the point I'm trying to make here is when I was in my 20s, I was insecure about my height. I was also insecure about the fact that I was losing my hair. Okay. I had thinning hair back in my 20s, like when I was 25. And I even went to a dermatologist to find out what my options were to deal with my receding hair. And this is when Rogaine very first came on the market. It was prescription only. It was expensive. Insurance would not cover it. And you had to get a prescription, which meant you had to go see a doctor and they had to prescribe it to you. Well, this doctor told me, yep, you have male pattern baldness. About the time this is going to stop is going to be probably in your mid 40s. So what started isn't going to stop. You have options. And he listed them all. Rogaine was an option. He told me the pros. He told me the cons. Same with all the other options. And he gave me a prescription, which I never filled. I went home. I thought about it for actually a couple more years and then decided in 2000, so it's now been 20 years. I decided, fuck it, I'm going to shave my head and see what I look like. So I did. And I was surprised pleasantly that, oh, wow, I don't look like some deformed, weird egghead with a bunch of weird bumps and scars and other crap going on. I'm actually half decent looking with being bald. The big thing that came out of that for me was the fact that my insecurity about going bald went away almost overnight. Because it's like, before I shaved my head, I always was thinking in the back of my mind, are women looking at me or are they looking at my receding hair? Well, now it's like, well, of course they're looking at my bald head. What else are they going to look at? And so that's what I did. Okay. And I've never looked back. I've had people ask me, have you ever thought about growing your hair back? No. It's far easier for me to keep it the way it is than to try and grow back whatever remains. I like being bald. Every day is a good hair day for me now, compared to when I was in my really vain 20s and wind and rain and precipitation were my enemies. Okay.
Or if you're like me right now, where I haven't been able to see a barber because of this freaking COVID-19 and I'm under lockdown.
There you
Not
have
sure what your state is, and if they don't open up the fucking barbershop soon, I'm gonna end up just taking my beard trimmer and shaving my fucking head because it's driving me nuts.
There you go.
Yeah, no. So there are advantages to it.
Right.
And I don't.
There's advantages also in the respect that I realized when I shaved my head and stopped worrying about being bald or going bald, I let that insecurity go. And women initially started showing up. There are women, believe it or not, that like bald men. They're attracted to bald guys. And that's typically one of the things that the women that show up in my world, they like bald men. I wear a beanie, obviously on podcasts, because I have a light directly over my head. And if I took this thing off, it would blow out the camera. We would have all kinds of, it's just what it is because of the shine of my head, which is why I wear a beanie in a podcast. I wear it outside in the winter to keep my head warm. And I wear it outside in the summer because I don't want to get melanoma. Okay. And I don't want to have to worry about, oh, you need to put on sunscreen or whatever. So I wear it a lot, but it's not because of insecurity. It's because of practicality. But all of the women that I've met, whether I married them, whether I lived with them, whether I just dated them or slept with them, they were fine with me being bald. They found that attractive. Now, also in my 20s, I was very insecure about my height. I'm 5'4", and I've been this since 9th grade, since I was 15. Okay, that's what, 35 years almost, something like that, 35, 36 years. I've never grown an inch since. And in my 20s, I made it an issue. And of course, women made it an issue. Well, I met a girl back when I was probably about 27, 28, who was almost 6 foot. She didn't have an issue with my height. She didn't have an issue with me being bald. In fact, when I first met her, she was like, I only date tall guys. I date guys with a full head of hair, and I date guys that don't have a lot of body hair. Okay, well, guess what? I'm short, I'm bald, I was actually fat, and I have a lot of body hair. And I was like, oh, well, you're probably not going to get along with me then. Guess what? When I broke up with her, she became my first stalker. Okay. She loved the fact that I was bald, even though she claimed she liked guys with full heads of hair. She loved playing in my chest hair, even though she claimed she didn't like a lot of chest hair. And she loved the fact that I was who I was, even though I was like literally like almost 6 inches shorter than her. But it was an issue for me, which made it an issue for her in the end. Okay. I realized my ex-wife, she's 5'8". She didn't give a shit that I was 5'4". It was never an issue for her. She liked the fact that I was bald. She liked the fact that I have body hair. Okay. Women will make whatever is an issue when you make it an issue. And that's something you can argue it if you want, and that's fine. I'm not going to try and change your mind. But I've just learned from experience that whatever you make an issue, then the woman's going to make it an issue as well. If you don't make it an issue, neither will they. Okay. I've dated women when I've literally never had a pot to piss in or a window to throw it out of. They'd still show up, bang me, feed me, and then go home. I've had women that they've been all heights, all shapes, all sizes. They think I'm pretty neat. Okay. And I'm average. I consider myself completely average. It's like I'm a 5. I'm a 5 when it comes to IQ. I'm between maybe 110 and 120 if I had to guess. I don't even know what my IQ is because it doesn't matter to me. Okay. Looks wise, I'm a 5. Okay. I'm below average in height. The only place that I might be above average besides my not giving a shit is in my the fact that I'm not overweight anymore. Okay. And going back to when you mentioned the incels, I remember seeing a documentary that was made when that term first came out, and they had like 5 guys on that all claimed the status of incel. And I'm watching them and I'm looking at them going, all of these guys but one are not bad looking dudes. They're average. There was one guy that was morbidly obese that it's like, yeah, he needs to work on that. But all the other guys, they were average weight. They weren't overweight. None of them were jacked. None of them were ripped. What they needed, though, was a change of attitude because every one of them were bitter. They were angry. They were bitter. They had this chip on their shoulder that I'm like, well, that's why you're not getting women, because you're pissed off about them. It's like if you guys changed up your wardrobe and wore something that actually fit you instead of either being too small or too big was usually the case. Most of these guys wore really baggy clothing. It's like, God, if you just wore something that actually fit and you went and spent more than $5 on your haircut and got a decent haircut, you're actually going to be a decent looking guy. But the biggest thing was it was their attitudes that was like, oh, I can see why chicks are put off by these guys. They're pissed off and they're bitter. And that was the big thing. And I used to be that way too. I used to be really bitter back in my 20s about women because they weren't all, fawning over me and cooing over me. And it pissed me off. And so I blamed my height. I blamed my lack of hair. I blamed all kinds of things instead of owning it and going, maybe it's you, dude. Maybe it's your personality and maybe you got a chip on your shoulder and you need to drop it. Because when I did that, that's when all of a sudden women showed up. They're like, oh, wow, here's this guy. I don't worry about the money. Do I make money? Yeah, I have a job. I live comfortably within my means, but that's just because I'm kind of a minimalist. I don't make a ton of money and I don't have a bunch of money that when I retire or whatever, it's like, no, but I don't hold any kind of grudge and I don't blame outside factors or blame other people for my circumstances. My height, I can't change that. So to me, there's 2 ways I can go about it. I can either go, woe is me, I guess I'm never getting laid. And guess what? I would never get laid. Or I can go, fuck it, it doesn't matter, and go talk to that girl anyway, and she may say yay or nay. And if she says nay, guess what? That's a numbers game. You're not going to be for everybody, and not everyone's going to be for you. All that does for me is tells me, okay, but let's push her aside and go focus on the next girl. Because sooner or later, I'm going to get a yes, and I always do. I always end up getting a yes, and I'm not a player. I'm not a PUA guy. My game literally is me just not caring that it's like, oh, I'm going to walk up. My opener, my line is, hey, you look like you're fun. What's going on? What's your name? That's my line. That's it. Otherwise, I don't worry about peacocking and negging and wearing feather boas and top hats and platform shoes and painting my nails. Or I don't worry about saying a bunch of other shit that, oh, I better memorize this, that, or the other. And I know all about that because I studied it back in my 20s. I remember when Mystery Method came out. And did I have success with it? Yeah, to a limited degree. But I realized, God, this is kind of artificial. This isn't who I am. And so I took the best of what those things offered and added it to what I had going for me, which is, depending on my mood, I'm either an asshole that I'm like looking at women and like, what's your story? What do you want? You know, because I really don't care. I'm not feeling good. So what do you want? Why are you here? What do you want from me? And that sometimes draws them in. Sometimes they run away. Either way, I'm good. Other times it is, I get a little high energy with them and it's like, hey, you look fun. You know, right now with the pandemic going on and everybody wearing masks, I'm looking for women who don't give a fuck about COVID. And so if they're wearing a mask or they're scared to come out, they're not the woman for me. They're not the kind of women I want to meet. I want women that are adventurous and don't care about a bug. And so, oh, this girl's not wearing a mask. Obviously, she doesn't give a shit. So I'm going to go talk to her. And that's what I'll say.
As long as the bug you're talking about is COVID and not herpes, AIDS, or syphilis or chlamydia. Yeah. Let's just. I think we should qualify that comment. Mm-hmm. But you said something a while back. I didn't really I didn't tell this because I didn't really like to overshare too much about my life. But when I was in my 20s, I gained a huge amount of weight in my early 20s. Mm-hmm. And I kind of got to where you said you're sick and tired of being sick and tired. I didn't put it like that, but I just decided, I said, you know what, enough is enough. And it kind of started as a New Year's resolution, actually. Mm-hmm. And I ended up losing a lot of weight. I ended up doing a lot of other things too, besides that. Like, you know, one year, I think I got my scuba certification, trained for my pilot's license. I did 5 whitewater rafting, 5 rivers, whitewater, all in. I mean, I just kind of went just total. Are you there? Or you just turn off the camera? And it was kind of, and I did end up losing about, 40 pounds, I think. And all of a sudden I was like you, I was semi-invisible to women, and all of a sudden wasn't. And literally I was a kid in a candy store. Are you there, Rob? Or I lose you? Oh, we're waiting for Rob to reestablish his connection. Let me see if I can look in the comments that was saying, someone said, John, why do you dislike Rollo? Well, it's not like I dislike him personally because I really don't know him. What happened between me and Rollo was he was part of the 21 convention, which, by the way, I think is a complete scam and did think then. And what happened was I said something about, I think it was on Quintus Curtius's, one of his comments, talking about these convention pickup artist bullshit things. And Rollo messaged me privately and said that he would pay for me to go to the 21 con. Not pay for me to travel to fly to it, but pay for my admission and everything, the whole VIP thing. And I said, yeah, fucking hey, I'll go then. You know, saying if you still believe that, you know, and I guess so. I was like, yeah, I'll take you up on it. And then he ends up getting kicked out of the 21 con, and he ends up blocking me. And now I was like, hey, what about this 21 con thing you said was so great that you wanted me to go to? And it turns out all these people that he was praising and everything like this. I think Rollo was a fucking, first off, don't take dating advice from someone who hasn't been on a date in 30 fucking years. I think that's a good rule of thumb. I mean, if you do that, you're an idiot. 2, I think I've read Rollo, and basically, unfortunately, his blog is gone. But if you read Royce or Chateau Artiste, basically read that, because reading Rollo is like reading Royce. Rollo is Royce, like if you knocked off 40 IQ points in the humor. I mean, that's all it is. Rollo, he's a B league guy. He's over verbose. He doesn't write. He takes the most simplest thing and tries to make it as complicated as there is. And basically, you could just Google the definition of hypergamy, and that sums up everything there is to know about Rollo. And he hasn't interacted with women in a dating sense in I don't know, 30 years. So it's not that I dislike him. I just think he's a fraud. And I've read his work, so I can speak. And I've been around a long time. I have a lot of experience with women. So yeah, and also he's full of shit, because he was all friendly with these guys, these 21 con guys, and now they don't want anything to do with him. And there's a couple other guys like that too. I don't know them personally, but like the other guys, what's the modern bloated dating guy? What's his name?
You're talking about guy? Modern Life, John.
Yeah, the modern, and he's like this fat guy, lives in Japan, and he's like giving advice on like body language. Is that what his thing is, or something like that?
That's one of them.
Yeah, and it's like, dude, you're in Japan, you're banging Asian girls in a country that's filled with fucking, what do they call them, grass eaters, and you're charging money. These are like, because Asian guys, you know, I mean, if you want to get, if you're a white guy and you go to Asia, dude, your sexual market value goes up exponentially. So, you know, bring this guy to Seattle, and trust me, he's not going to get laid by anything that, you know, he's going to find some one-legged blonde chick to maybe fuck him as a fucking pity fuck. I've seen what this guy looks like. So yeah, I think a lot of these guys are cons. If they're charging you money, they're a con. And that's like, he might be a nice guy personally to hang out with, but his whole, it's a grift. That's what it is. It's a grift. It's like Rob said, he's not a pickup artist. He's not selling you shit on how to meet girls. He's telling you his thoughts on life. That's someone I can talk to. But someone that's charging you fucking money, stay the fuck away from them. There's nothing that they can tell you that is not freely available on the internet. Nothing. Anyway, that's my little rant on that. I don't know if you heard me earlier talking about I went through a weight loss thing similar to you, not quite to the same extent, because
right,
you're if you're 5'4" and you're 60 pounds overweight, that's a huge amount of weight, because
it is.
You got to take into, like, you know, if someone is 6'5" and they lost 60 pounds, it's not that big of it. I mean, it's 60 pounds, but you might not notice it as much.
Right. It's definitely not as visibly noticeable as it is on a smaller guy or a smaller woman. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, God, a woman any height losing, so that's a huge amount of weight.
Absolutely.
But yeah, no, for women too. Like, I remember I was dating this chick that was, she was 5'10", and she was very athletic. She was a volleyball player. I remember telling me she was 148 pounds. And I was like, really? I couldn't.
Yeah,
but it was
probably solid muscles.
Yeah. Well, and at a height, she was 5'10".
Yeah, that too.
And I was like, you're that much? And she's like, yeah. And I remember picking her up, and she was heavy, you know, not like she wasn't, but she was not obese. It was just.
No, but she's, because of her height and the fact that she's got more muscle going on than fat, she's a heavier girl. Absolutely. Yeah. No, I get it. I get it.
So yeah, I lost a huge amount of weight, and a similar thing happened to me in my 20s. And I, all of a sudden, you know, I mean, I wasn't losing the weight for the girls. It was kind of like I was doing it because I wasn't married. Like, I wasn't in a situation like that. I was dating a girl who I had been kind of in a long-term relationship with, but it wasn't I knew I wasn't wanting to marry or anything like that, you know. But I think it was lazy because, like, the sex was good. I used to abuse the chick like a farm animal. And I did things to her that, I mean, they still not allowed to show in porno movies even now, even in the European ones. But it was great, you know. But then, and oh, by the way, yeah, she ended up becoming a stalker. Lost the weight. No, so I'm not kidding. She slashed my tires.
Oh boy.
She used to get she worked for a cell phone company. She used to get all my cell calls, and all the different girls I'd meet, she'd call them up and threaten to kill them.
Oh Jesus.
I'm talking serious bunny boiler shit. But anyway, that's a separate issue. But back to the whole thing is, I realized that the way you look determined everything. Like, my personality hadn't changed, because, like I said, when I was losing this weight, I wasn't doing it for women per se. I was doing it because there was other things that I just wanted to do with my life. I wanted to be healthy. You know, I quit smoking at the time too, and I started training very seriously in martial arts, which I had been training in before, but I was really serious about it, 5 days a week. You know, I was like, I want my black belt. And so, and all of a sudden the women just kind of came, but I realized that my personality really hadn't changed. It was just my looks. These women didn't know me. They didn't know I was cool. They didn't know I was, you know, I like thinking of myself, well, a badass in my 20s. I was, and they didn't know that. They were purely judging me based on how attractive I was physically. It was purely about that. And that's, you know, because nothing had changed about me except the way I looked. So that's why I was saying that the incel thing they have an argument. Yeah, you can modify I think they call it looksmaxing. I think that's the word that they the phrase.
Yeah, that's the term.
And it's literally looksmaxing, right? That's what they actually say.
And that is the term. Yeah.
They basically, that's just like you can take a looksmaxing to extreme. Like, there are surgeries you can do, like to make yourself tall. Like you were talking. I remember. Did you ever see the movie Gattaca? Do you remember? Like, there's a scene in the movie where, because he wasn't tall enough of the guy he was impersonating, he actually got that surgery to elongate himself.
I vaguely remember that. Yeah.
And so there actually is, like, surgical things that, you know, people do. And that was a science fiction movie, but I think that is real. And I know there's people get, like, guys will get, like, chin implants and.
Well, when I went to the dermatologist about my hair loss, okay, and he laid out all the different options I had. I could do Rogaine. I could do basically a toupee, which apparently they've made those into a thing where literally you can't tell the difference. It's made from human hair, and they blend the color to look exactly like your own. And short of someone grabbing it and pulling, they're never going to know the texture is the same. Okay, you've got
but in sex that happens sometimes. They
right,
grab on it, and,
right,
you know.
right. But even with you know, you could get hair plugs. You could have graft surgery where they take hair from the back of your head and put it where you're losing your hair, so it's actually your hair and it grows and all of that. One thing I realized, and you're kind of touching on it. Maybe I'm going a different direction here, but the companies that sell all of these services and products, they're trying to play upon your fear. Okay. They're capitalizing on your fears that, oh, you're losing your hair, and all women want a guy with a full head of hair, because who doesn't love a full head of hair? And so now, because your hair is thinning or it's gone, you're oh shit, I'm incomplete, and so I need to do something about it. I need to do Rogaine, or I need to get hair transplant, or I need to do one of these hair toupee whatever things. Okay, there's whole industries, billion-dollar industries, that are built on predicating to your fear. Okay, same with the chin implants, and well, we're gonna break your bones and stretch you out and you'll gain 2 inches or whatever. Because guys, oh, you know, I'm not 6 foot or over, and so therefore I'm not going to get the girls. And it's all a play on fear, your insecurity. Women get it even probably triple fold with all the bullshit they get to deal with. Okay, but the point that I'm trying to make here is I'm below average in height. I'm 5'4". The only part of me that is average or above average to me is 2 things. I'm not overweight. Okay. I am average in weight. I'm not jacked. I'm not ripped. I do not have a 6-pack ab. Okay. I don't want to do that. That requires more sacrifice and work than I want to put into it. So I'll never have that. And I'm okay with that. All right. So I'm below average in height. I'm maybe average or above average in weight. That's the one area that, okay, maybe I got something on somebody. Because a friend of mine that I met through the internet that happens to live not too far from me, he got me going back to the bars before COVID. And so we're going out, not quite every weekend, but for me, once, maybe twice a month, we'd go out to a couple different bars. And I'm walking in,
and for you young bloods listening, when you get into your mid to late 40s, that's a lot.
It really is. It is. For a guy like me, going out even once a month is a lot. Okay. But I would go out with him and we'd have fun. We'd go out. But one of the things I noticed that had changed from when I was in my 20s, I walk in, and back in the day, to use that term, back in the 90s or even the early aughts, guys were dressed to the nines. They were dressed sharp. They had their hair on point. They had their beards, if that's what they did, on point. They were well-groomed, well-dressed. Okay. And so me being out of that whole go to the bar scene, I've been out of it for well over a decade. I'm thinking, oh shit, I need to be on point, because that's going to be my competition. So I'm dressing nice. I'm grooming my beard. I'm trimming up the loose ends, making sure I get rid of the ear hair and the nose hair and all that shit. It takes me a grand total of like 15 minutes. I'm getting in the shower. I'm shaving my head, shaving my neck. Okay. So there's another 15 minutes. Then I'm putting on the clothes that I like to wear, but they're kind of, in my opinion, they're kind of dressy. It's like, okay, I'm going to put on some nice black jeans, some black boots, put on
a nice button-down shirt.
Correct. Yeah. The necklace, the bracelet. I'm doing all that shit.
The bling.
Yeah. Put on some bling, because man, I already know I got my work cut out for me, because I'm 5'4" and I'm older now. Okay. I'm the old guy in the bar. So go to the bar. And first thing I notice is, am I the oldest guy in the bar? No, No, this bar is pretty eclectic. They've got a whole wide range from early 20s right up to probably, if I had to guess, probably late 50s. Okay, so
Wow.
age-wise, I'm kind of in the middle. It's like, oh, okay, well, at least I'm not the creepy old guy in the club. That's good, because nobody wants to be that guy.
That's a Chris Rock skit, yeah.
Right. Okay, and there's some truth in that. So I don't go hang out at the clubs where only the 20-somethings go, because I don't want to be the old creepy guy. But this bar has a wide age demographic. It's like, oh, okay, so I'm not the only older guy here. There's quite a few guys here and women. Okay, so everybody, everybody's accepted, diversity, all that bullshit. But what I noticed was most of the guys, one, they're overweight. Okay, they may not be morbidly obese, but they're all overweight. They've got guts. And it's like, okay, so I'm probably one of the thinnest guys in the bar. And number two, they're all wearing flip-flops and shorts or t-shirts and jeans, looking like they just came from Walmart. And it's like, okay, so they're all dressed pretty sloppy. And this is their, I'm going out on a Friday night, Saturday night routine. Wow. Okay, so I am literally one of 3 guys in the bar that's actually dressed decent. It's like, holy shit, my shit looks good. It's clean. It's, if I needed to, I ironed my shirt to get the wrinkles out of it. Took me, again, 5 minutes. And my clothes fit. They're not too tight. They're not too baggy. Where all of the other guys in the bar were wearing baggy clothes. And I'm like, well, no shit, I'm getting looks. Yeah, I'm the new guy in the bar, so I'm going to get looks just for that reason alone. But here I am. I'm dressed in clothing that fits. It's clean. I have a modicum of looking like I care for my appearance. And I was one of the, I was knee deep in women. They were the ones coming up to me, come dance. Let's go over here. Let's do this. Let's do that. And, part of it, I'm sure, is I'm the new guy in the bar. But a lot of it was the fact that, God, all I did was wear clothes that fit and was somewhat stylish. And it was clean. All these other guys are wearing t-shirts with stains and they're wrinkled and they're either too big or they're too small. And the guys look like they just crawled out of bed. And I'm like, holy fuck, the competition is non-existent. And that's the thing, is that when I got divorced, dating had changed because dating apps and all of that. But I hit the ground running, and right off the bat, pull a girl 20 years younger than me. And then I'm pulling other women that are anywhere from about 30 to 40. That's their age group. I'm seeing 4 women simultaneously at one point. Okay. And I'm banging all of them. And they know this. I'm being honest about it because I don't want a monogamous relationship at that point. Even now, I don't really want one. I don't want to play house. I've done it twice. The end result is the same, which tells me I'm the common denominator. Maybe I'm just not the domesticated type, and I'm okay with that. So I'm very honest with women when they meet me that it's like, look, I'm Mr. Right now. I'm not Mr. Right. Okay. I'm here for fun. I'm here to have fun. And if it goes for years, great. If it doesn't, I'm okay either way because I have other options. There's other women that are out there. And if anything, it's not gotten harder to date, in my opinion, compared to the 90s. It's gotten easier because women have gotten lazy and lax. The hard part with women now is finding women that are actually not overweight.
Yeah, well, can I stop you there? Because you were talking about the men. See, because when I go to a bar, I'm looking at the women, not the men. And
right.
I'm not saying you're looking at the men, but yeah.
Right. But I want to size up the competition. What do I got to do to be the best guy in the room?
Right. But I noticed, like, and I'm sure this is very local dependent. Like,
sure.
it's going to vary.
It is going to vary on your demographic, your region, all that, of course.
And like in Seattle, the women are lazy in there. I mean, when I go to a bar in Seattle or, any bar / I like to go to, like when I go out to meet, I like to go to like to the kind of happy hour, kind of higher end kind of places. when you're older, that's, what you do. And you have,
Yeah.
hopefully you have some cash, and I like to go. But even there, like, I noticed it's like all these bitches are, excuse me, I mean, they're just, it's like maybe 2 in the whole place that I could even remotely want to see naked. I mean, it's just like, and they're, of course, have a choice of 50 guys. So it's just, the odds are really bad here. I mean, fortunately, I've lived here a long time, so I have a social network and all that, and other ways to meet people and women and stuff like that. But I'm just thinking, like, if you were, like, say you just moved here, you relocated for a job or whatever, and you go out and you go to a bar and you're like, man, they're all cows. I mean, they're ugly. They got these, I mean, they shave like one side of their head and they flop the hair over the other.
No, I know the look. I know that warrior look. We have them out here in Utah too. So
yeah, probably not as bad as you do, in Seattle, but
probably not, but they're here.
Yeah, there's some there, or God forbid you go to Portland, where, I mean, you go to a bar and you're not sure whether, is that a man or a woman? I mean, I'm not even sure. I mean, these are frightening looking. I mean, I'm not even talking about you thinking about fucking me. I'm like, Jesus, she's gonna kill me. So it's, and I even in New York, it's getting like that now. And New York used to be. I mean, I'd go to New York and it was like, it was almost like I was turning them away. It was like, I'm sorry, I was with 3 succubuses in a row. I'm just here just to watch the game. Leave me alone. You know what I mean? Like, but even there, it's gotten like that. Well, not to that extent, but I'm just saying. So, I guess what I'm getting at here is, because I kind of wanted this to be a little bit this live stream to be a little bit on this topic, are these incels? I'm talking about guys 30 and under. That's kind of like what is all the shit that they're saying, or is it all just they're fat, lazy, and nihilists, or is there any truth to their arguments?
Well, the only thing I'm going to say to it is there maybe some merit? Not really. I won't go so far as to say truth. Is there some merit? I think there may be some merit when the women in your area, whether it's a particular watering hole, a bar, whatever, if the women are shit, then why bother? But my understanding of incel is involuntary celibate, which means they want to get laid, but they can't. Okay, that's my understanding of what that term means. It's not, God, I go to the local bar and they're all a bunch of war pigs and they're all hideous. And so, goddamn, I don't want to fuck any of them. And yet I'm turning them away and beating them back with a stick. It's, no, I'm interested in some of these women, but no matter what I say or do, they're not interested in me, is my understanding of the term incel. And so I'm looking at it like I was saying earlier when I was watching this documentary where they had these guys. All these guys needed, with the exception of the guy that needed to lose weight, and he actually had the best attitude out of the whole bunch, is change up maybe your wardrobe, wear some clothes that fit, something that's a little less outdated, get a different haircut, which, because these guys had some shitty haircuts, and then lose the attitude. Lose that entitlement, that anger, that bitterness, because the women aren't fawning all over you. Stop putting it on them in a lot of cases, and you might find out that a lot of these women will actually be interested in you. And so, to me, a true incel, involuntary celibate, is a guy or a woman who is so hideous. They're like Quasimodo, like nobody would fuck them. Okay. Nobody at all would come near them. Okay. And I'm sure, John, just like, a nationwide corporation, Walmart, have you seen some of the people at Walmart? Because I have, and I'm looking at them, and I remember this when I was married. Me and my ex-wife were in Walmart picking up stuff. And I remember her being the one to look at me and look at some woman and go, can you believe somebody fucked that? Because here's this woman that's absolutely hideous, just obese as hell and just ugly, physically unattractive to the max. And she's towing 3 kids. Okay. And I'm looking at that thinking there was somebody out there who was like, yep, that's acceptable.
Well, odds are it was probably the 3 kids had 3 different fathers. But anyway,
either way, then that means there was 3 different guys who were like, yeah, I'd do that. Okay. And the same thing, I've seen guys in Walmart that are toting around 3 kids, whether they're their kids or he's playing dad to some other guy. I don't know. I didn't go and do a poll. But here's a guy that's fat, out of shape, looks disgusting, and yet he's got kids in tow. And at least one of them was his because the kid looked just like him. That it's like, oh, that one for sure is yours. The other ones, I don't know, maybe, maybe not. Okay, whatever. But I'm looking at that going, somebody fucked you. Okay. So the idea that in order to be unfuckable, unlovable, nobody will come near you. No one. I'm looking at that going, that's a choice. That's attitude. That's you being bitter, being angry, being pissed off, whatever it is. Because, like I said, most of the people I've met, men and women both, that have taken on the badge of incel, they're fives. It's like, you're actually average. You're not bad looking. You're not ugly by any means, but your attitude about it is what's making you unattractive. Change up your haircut a little bit, put on some clothes that actually fit and are somewhat stylish. Give a little bit of, give a shit a little bit about your appearance and lose the chip on your shoulder. You might actually find a guy, or in the case of the handful of women that I've encountered, lose that attitude about men. And hell, I'd want to do you. That it's like, oh, you're attracted to me because I know the signs. I know what those look like. You're going off and whining about guys, but you're orbiting me. And the only reason I'm not touching you is because you've got a case of attitude that I don't want to deal with that shit. It's like you got burned by a dude. He cheated on you. Guess what? That happens. It happened to me years ago. Get over it. It happens. Get over yourself. Realize that, what? Unless you are Quasimodo, you've got bumps on your back and your jaw's over here and you got 3 teeth in your head and one eye's down here and the other one's up here. It's like you're not hideous, which means you have a chance, but you're getting in your own way. And that's why I've when I heard about the black pill as a whole group and about incels as a kind of a subset and all of that, and MGTOW, guys that are pissed off because they got burned one too many times, which I get it. It's like, you want to take your ball and go home. Okay, cool. Then go do that. Then just go. I don't identify with that because I'm average, and yet I've had, in my opinion, above average results. And it's because I don't care about my height. It's not an issue anymore. I don't care about what my ex did or didn't do, or what some woman that I met 10, 20 years ago did. It doesn't matter. Women are going to women. They're going to do whatever they're going to do. And I can choose to accept it and acknowledge it and to a degree mitigate what may come out of it. But at the same time, I can't control for it. I might as well just enjoy her company because it's better than using my hand. And so that's kind of how I look at it. And that's where I'm like, women are going to women. And I don't let the past women of my life, I don't let their sins carry forward to women in my future. It's like, okay, so this woman did this. That doesn't mean this girl's going to automatically do it too. She might, but then again, maybe she won't. There's things that I know about all the different women in my past. Some cheated, some didn't. Some did this, some did that. Some did whatever. Some of them, I just got bored. Some of them were like, I want to get married. I'm like, I don't. And so I'm going to let you go because you're wasting your time with me if that's what you want, because I'm never going to give that to you because I've already done that and I don't see any point in doing it again. So I'm not going to do that. So go find another dude that's more to your taste. But yet they're the ones that tend to hang around. Oh God, if I can change your mind, you're not going to. So that's where I know what the black pill is. I know what incels are, but I don't care because I'm not one of them. And to me, I get it. I respect where you're coming from, guys, but honestly, it's a cope. It's a cope because I'm 48. I'm average income. I'm average in looks, average intelligence. And yet I can pull women because I don't worry about being rejected. And I don't carry a chip on my shoulder for what women in the past did. And I'm not pissed off about the women of today. So they're fat and lazy. Those are the ones I ignore. I'm not interested. Thanks, but no thanks. And I just move on and find a girl that's more what I like. Oh, she's half decent, half in shape. Okay, I'm going to go talk to her, and either she's interested or she's not. And if she isn't, fine. Okay, thanks. Move on. If she's interested, let's go. Let's see where this goes. Sometimes it goes somewhere, sometimes it goes nowhere. But either way, I'm doing what I want to do instead of what other people think I ought to be doing. Because I did that for fucking 40 years. And all I ended up was miserable, wanting to die. And so I decided, I have another 40 years, give or take, in my life, depending on life expectancy. Now I'm going to do things the way I want to do them. And that means I'm going to date women that are younger, because I found out dating one that told me I can do this again. Oh, wow. There was one girl who was interested in me that happened to be younger. And it wasn't just short term. It wasn't, oh, well, we got together, we bumped uglies for a few weeks and then moved on. Fuck, we actually had a lot in common. Okay, enough that we dated for 4 years and lived together for 2 of them. Okay, cool. Well, if there's one, that means there's others. And now I've learned by observation, by getting out of my head, what to look for. And I can see the girls I'm interested in. I can tell, oh, she's interested. Does that mean I'm getting laid? No. But she's interested, so I'm going to go talk to her. Where this other girl, yeah, she's hot, but she's not looking at me or giving me the time of day. She's clearly not interested. So to hell with her. Let's move on. Let's go talk to this girl who's been making eye contact. I'm going to go talk to that girl. And so that's what I do. And the odds end up being a lot more in my favor. Whether she's short, tall, thin, average, not really fat, but just average. I've had so many women in the last couple of years that are like, oh my God, I've been looking for a guy like you, because I don't care. I say what I want. I do what I want. I grab them by the hand and go, come on, we're doing this. And they're looking for someone to lead them. Instead of, the guys that are, well, what do you want to do? I don't know. What do you want to do? Well, what do you want to do? I'm like, what do you want to do? I'll say it one time. And they're like, I don't know. What do you want to do? We're going to go do this. And then they happily go along. They're like, oh my God, that's what I've been looking for. It's like, just own what you want to be, guys. And whatever your issue is, it's your issue. And you'll make it an issue. And then the women will make it an issue as well. If you don't make it an issue, neither will they. And that's coming from since I was 42, so the last 6 years of dating, that I've had more success, if you want to call it that, with meeting women, dating women, banging women. I've had more success in the last 6 years than I did the 42 years before that. And all I did was I lost some weight and I stopped caring about what they thought or what other people thought. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do me, because that's what makes me happy. I like women that are 25 to 30, ideally. But I'll date women closer to my age and even my own age. It's like, if she's in half decent shape and she's got a good sense of humor about her and she's not psychotic enough. Yeah. Okay. And she's not shaving the side of her head. But even the girls that shave the side of her head, I'll take her home and bang her too. I'm not committing to her. I'm just going to go have fun because it's better than using my hand. So.
Yeah, well, I just have trouble. I mean, when a chick shaves the side of her head, unless she has a body like what's that name, Ava Green or something like that. I can't keep my dick hard when I'm looking at that.
And that's the ultimate test, is the boner test. If she's not giving you a hard on, then why bother? Yeah. So I'm in the same boat, but I've met some women that, they got, the nose piercing, which to me is absolutely hideous. Absolutely hideous. It's like, wow, you just went down a couple of points just because you got that bull ring going on. Okay. And they got the side of their head shaved, but hey, she's got a decent body. The boner's still there. I'm not marrying this girl. I'm not committing to her. Hey, she wants to come home with me. Fuck it. Let's go home. Let's have fun. I don't care what her politics are. I don't care what her religious beliefs are, or if she has any. Fuck it. I don't care. I got laid. That's what I wanted. And whether she comes back for round 2 or not, you know what? If she does, great. If not, that's fine. But either way, I had my fun because that's what I wanted to do. And
yeah, well, just to add some levity to this, though, I would say that, like, religiously, I mean, one of the things I did, like, as a joke back in my rock star 20s was, back when they had bookstores and stuff. I used to go to the astrology section and stuff like that and meet chicks that were like, look at books like astral projection and past lives and astrology. These are the chicks that they're going to tongue your balls like you wouldn't believe. These are the biggest freaks,
Yeah. I know. I used to read tarot cards, man. I did it professionally. I got paid for it. And so you're absolutely right.
Yeah. Those are the chicks that are going to be like totally free, like they're going to, tantric sex. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. Let me just stick it in your ass. So, that's true. I mean, the Christian chicks are back in my days, I grew up in New York. The Catholic girls were great. Like once they got to college, when they got out of Catholic school and the Catholic burden was somewhat lifted, and the cool thing was a lot of them still had their Catholic school jumpsuits. So you could get freaky and put that on, which I wish they had the smartphone cameras back then. Cause holy shit.
Yeah, but the selfies you could have had back in the day.
Oh man, you know how much money you could got if I had video of that stuff, man?
Right?
Jesus. But I mean, I did some freaky shit. But anyway, I just gotta say, it was great talking to you, Rob. I think it's the first time. I think we've been on some streams together. It was the first time you and I one-on-one.
Absolutely, it is the first time you and I have been one-on-one. I know you were on, I believe it was Masculine Geek, and I was on with that when we had you on here not too long ago. And where I kind of like how we have mutual acquaintances. That's how I'd first heard of you. Was actually Aaron Clary, of all people, was listening.
The notorious Holocaust denier. Yes,
that guy. Yeah, I remember you had been on his show. I don't remember, as I know you've been on his show a few times.
I interviewed you too.
Okay, but I don't remember if you guys were solo or if it was like you, him, and Chad. I don't remember who it was, but that's where I first remember hearing of you. And I was like, oh, John Steele, he's got a hell of a voice. I like this guy. Oh, and you, whatever the topic was, which escapes my memory right at the moment because I've heard so many topics. But at the time, I'm thinking, wow, this guy, he's thought this out. He's well articulated. He's given it a lot of thought. He's not just, flying by the seat of his pants type of thing. He knows his subject. And so I was like, you know what? I kind of like John Steele. This guy he knows how to put a couple of sentences together, and he's got a voice for it where it's not like fingernails on a chalkboard. And so that's where I first remember hearing of you, was through Aaron Clary, though. So,
well, thanks for your kind words about me.
You're welcome.
But lastly, before we go, can you please plug your YouTube, your main page where they can find you? That's the main one. Was
the main page that's the easiest to find me, that has all of my links to everything I'm involved in, is at robsays.net. That is by far the easiest way, because there's different tabs and whatnot that will give you all my social media, whether it's Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, all that, because I have a presence on all of them to one degree or another. So robsays.net is where you guys can find me the easiest.
Yeah, everybody, check him out. Follow him on Twitter. Whenever he posts something new, he'll put it up on Twitter to alert you. Yep. So you can just directly link it to there. Anyway, Rob, thank you so much. Thanks everybody who tuned in and commented. And I hope to talk to you again, Rob. It was
absolutely.
A lot of fun.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'd love to do it again, John.
We will.
Okay.